Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into a really significant chapter, Isaiah 13.
Absolutely. It's this incredibly vivid, almost terrifying oracle about the fall of Babylon.
Right, and it's not just predicting history, is it? It feels like it's laying down a blueprint almost for how God deals with human pride, with arrogance on a grand scale.
That's exactly it. Our mission today really is to unpack this verse by verse, look at the language, the imagery from the armies gathering to these, cosmic signs, and try to grasp the spiritual, the psychological, even the historical weight behind it all.
And the timing is just, well, it's remarkable, isn't it?
It really is. Isaiah gets this vision, this very specific burden, maybe 150, even 200 years before Babylon becomes the dominant superpower we think of.
Wow.
And centuries before it falls. So right away, you're dealing with something beyond just, smart political forecasting. It suggests foreknowledge, something supernatural.
Okay, let's start right at the beginning then. Verse 1, the burden of Babylon, which Isaiah the son of Emmaus did see. That first phrase, the burden, it feels heavy just saying it.
It is heavy, and that's precisely the point. The Hebrew word is massa. It can mean message, sure, but the stronger sense here is a load, a weight.
Like something you have to carry.
Exactly. Or even better, think of it like a juridical sentence, a verdict that's been handed down. It's this unavoidable judgment that Babylon, the nation, the empire, has to bear. It's not really a warning they can choose to ignore. It's more like a declaration of doom.
And it specifies Isaiah saw it, not just heard about it or sought it up.
Right. The verb there is chaza. It means he received it visually as a prophetic vision. That anchors it firmly in divine revelation, not human analysis. God showed him what was determined to happen.
So it has this immediate authority. It's not just Isaiah's opinion on geopolitics.
Not at all. It sets the stage for everything that follows. This is coming from God.
And the target is Babylon. Even this early, centuries before Nebuchadnezzar, why Babylon? What did it represent already?
Well, historically, you're right. It's the city on the Euphrates, Nimrod's foundation, later Nebuchadnezzar's capital. But theologically, it's already got this symbolic weight.
You mean like the Tower of Babel?
Precisely. It stands for human pride, reaching for the heavens, trying to make a name for itself apart from God. It represents collective defiance, technological self-reliance, idolatry. It's kind of the symbolic HQ for organized opposition to God.
So judging Babylon isn't just about one city.
It's about judging that spirit, that ideology. Its destruction becomes the pattern, the template for how God eventually deals with all systems built on that kind of pride and oppression.
Okay, so if Babylon represents that arrogant system, verses 2 to 5 shift immediately to God acting like a commander-in-chief mustering an army.
Yeah, the imagery is striking. God speaks in the first person. He orders a banner, a nez, raised up high on a bare hill, a signal fire, basically visible for miles.
A rallying point.
A rallying point. And then a loud shout to summon forces to attack the gates of the nobles. It's very specific. The target isn't just the city walls. It's the very heart of Babylon's elite power structure. The rich, the powerful, the ones benefiting from the whole system.
And who is this army? This is where it gets really interesting, because God calls them his sanctified ones in verse 3.
This is a huge theological point. God says, I have commanded my sanctified ones. The Hebrew is mikwadeshe. I have called my mighty ones for my anger. But these aren't Israelites.
Right. Later on, they're identified as the Medes, pagans.
Exactly. So how can they be sanctified, holy? It's a paradox.
It sounds like God is setting them apart, consecrating them just for this specific job, even if they don't know it.
That's the understanding. The sanctification isn't about their personal beliefs or morality. It's about their function. God consecrates them, sets them apart for the holy task of carrying out his judgment on Babylon's pride.
So they become, in a way, holy instruments of wrath.
Instruments, yes. And the text even says they rejoice in my highness, maybe meaning they revel in their victory, which, ironically, proves Yahweh's power over Babylon's gods like Marduk, whether they intend it that way or not.
That is just a mind-bending level of divine sovereignty being claimed here. God isn't just watching history unfold.
Yep.
He's actively directing nations, even non-believing nations, as his own sort of special forces unit.
And it connects perfectly to the title used here, Yahweh Sebaot, the Lord of Hosts, or Lord of Armies. It emphasizes his command over all forces, heavenly and earthly. Every army, every political move is ultimately under his authority.
Which explains the sound Isaiah hears next.
Yes, verses 4 and 5. He hears a shan, this incredible noise, a tumult, a roar on the mountains. It's the sound of kingdoms, of nations gathering for war, a huge coalition.
Not just a local skirmish?
Definitely not. And where do they come from? from a distant country from the end of heaven.
That sounds like everywhere.
It emphasizes the vast scale. God's reach is global, maybe even cosmic. He's pulling forces from the edges of the known world, and they are explicitly called the weapons of his indignation. So the whole introduction hammers home this point. God is the sovereign director of history, using nations as his tools to fulfill his moral judgments.
Okay, so God has mustered his army. Now the focus shifts dramatically to the event itself. The day of the Lord. Verse 6 kicks it off. Howl ye, for the day of the Lord is at hand.
Yom Yahweh, the day of the Lord. This is such a central concept in the prophets. It's that specific time, that intervention, when God steps directly into history to judge, to bring justice, and ultimately to establish his rule.
And it's coming as destruction from the Almighty. There's some wordplay there, isn't there?
A really powerful one. Shad Mishadai, destruction from the Almighty or the All-Sufficient One. The sound itself, Shad. Shadi, it links the destruction directly and emphatically to God's overwhelming power. There's no mistaking the source.
How does this overwhelming power affect the people on the receiving end? Verses 7 and 8 paint a pretty grim picture.
It's a picture of total collapse, even before the battle fully engages, psychologically and physically. All hands will be faint. Imagine that, unable to even lift a weapon, paralyzed by fear.
And every man's heart shall melt. That's more than just being scared.
Oh yeah, it's a complete loss of courage, an emotional and spiritual breakdown. It's that terror you feel when the very foundation of your world, your mighty empire, proves useless against what's coming. It's existential dread.
And then the metaphor, the pain of childbirth.
Right. They'll be seized by pangs, writhing like a woman in labor. Throughout Scripture, that metaphor signifies pain that's, well, first, incredibly intense. Second, it's inevitable, you can't stop it once it starts. And third, it signals the painful end of the old order, the necessary suffering before something new can be born, even if what's being born here is judgment.
The horror isn't just individual either. It says they shall be amazed one at another.
That captures the communal aspect, doesn't it? Seeing the same terror reflected in everyone else's eyes, universal helplessness, and then their faces shall be as flames.
What does that mean? Flushed with fear. Or literally reflecting the fires.
It could be both. Flushed with terror, with shame perhaps, as their pride evaporates, or more chillingly, maybe their faces are literally lit by the flames of their burning city. Either way, it shows the complete dissolution of that Babylonian self-assurance into shared panic.
So the psychological terror is immense, and the text makes it clear this isn't random violence. It's purposeful.
Very purposeful. Verse 9 calls the day cruel, both with wrath and fierce anger. But notice the specific goal, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. It's targeted judgment against sin, against wickedness. It's about justice, not just conquest.
And then the scale just explodes. Verse 10 leaves the battlefield and goes cosmic. The stars, the sun, the moon, they go dark.
This is where the prophecy clearly moves beyond just a historical event in, say, 539 BC. This is eschatological language. The very order of creation seems to unravel. Stars, constellations, sun, moon, they stop giving light.
Why target the heavens like that? Is it just poetic hyperbole for a really bad day?
It's more than poetry. Think about who the Babylonians were. They were master astronomers, but they also worshiped celestial bodies. The sun, moon, and stars were central to their religion, their view of order, maybe even their sense of destiny.
So God darkening their gods is a direct theological statement.
Exactly. It's Yahweh declaring his absolute supremacy over the very powers Babylon trusted in and worshipped. It's like a decreation, rolling things back towards primordial chaos. It signals the end of hope, the collapse of their entire worldview, the failure of their god.
A literal lights out for their civilization and its idols.
You could say that. And verse 11 spells out the moral reason for this universe-shaking event. I will punish the world for their evil and the wicked for their iniquity. And it gets specific again, targeting the arrogancy of the proud and the haughtiness of the terrible, or the ruthless.
So it's aimed squarely at that systemic pride, that oppressive power.
Yes. God's justice isn't arbitrary. It's moral, it's thorough, and it directly confronts this collective self-exaltation that defies divine authority.
The devastation is so complete, it's even measured in, well, the value of human life afterwards.
Verse 12 uses this striking hyperbole. The slaughter will be so bad that a single human life will become rarer, more precious than fine gold, even more rare than the gold of Ophir.
Ophir, that was like the ultimate source of pure gold, right?
The most legendary, yes. So finding a living person will be harder than finding the purest gold. It drives home the sheer scale of the depopulation. It's a devastating, almost complete annihilation.
And just before describing the actual invasion, verse 13 loops back to that cosmic scale one last time.
It reinforces the source and the power. God will shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of her place because of the wrath of the Lord of hosts. It underlines that this isn't just politics or warfare as usual. It's a divine cataclysmic intervention. The fall of Babylon is presented as an event that rocks the very foundations of the cosmos. Hashtag tag 3. Execution, the Medes, and eternal desolation. V14-22.
Okay, so we've had the cosmic signs of divine decree. Now, verses 14 through 16 bring it right down to the ground. The execution of this judgment is described in horrifyingly specific detail. It's quite a shift.
It is. The scene just erupts into chaos on a human level. You have survivors scattering like hunted animals, hunted white-tailed deer, sheep with no shepherd. It's a total breakdown of order, of leadership. Everyone is just desperately trying to flee back to their own lands, their own people, a complete rout.
But verse 15 makes it clear, escape is unlikely, the violence is indiscriminate.
It really is. The language is brutal and meant to shock. Anyone found is thrust through, no quarter given, and then the truly horrific details. Their little children will be dashed to death right before their eyes.
It's hard to even read.
It is. Their homes will be sacked and their wives raped. The text forces you to confront the absolute horror and totality of the destruction.
Why include such graphic detail? Is it just for shot value?
I think it serves a crucial theological purpose. It strips away any romanticism about judgment. It shows the real, devastating human cost when a society built on pride and perhaps violence receives its due. If Babylon felt secure in its power and wealth, this violence tears through every layer of that security, family, home, life itself. It demonstrates the utter vulnerability of human systems before divine justice.
And then verse 17 finally names the specific human instrument God will use for this.
Yes. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them. This gives us that historical anchor. The Medes, from the region of modern Iran, eventually allied with the Persians under Cyrus to conquer Babylon.
And God highlights something very specific about them, doesn't he? Something that makes them the perfect tool for this particular judgment.
He does. It's the key to why they're so effective. They shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it.
That's stunning. Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, built on immense wealth. And its destroyers don't care about the gold.
It's the ultimate irony, isn't it? Babylon's whole identity, its power, its security, is tied up in its material wealth. But the Medes, driven by conquest, maybe vengeance, and ultimately by God's unseen hand, aren't motivated by plunder. You can't buy them off. You can't appease them with treasure.
Their indifference to Babylon's core value seals its fate.
Precisely. It shows that earthly riches offer zero protection when God's judgment arrives through an instrument that simply doesn't play by those rules.
And their ruthlessness is absolute, ensuring the destruction is complete.
Verse 18 confirms that. No mercy. Their bows will shoot down the young men. No pity on babies, no compassion for children. It's about wiping out the present and the future potential of the enemy. Total eradication.
This horrific efficiency leads to the ultimate comparison in verse 19. Babylon is compared to Sodom and Gomorrah.
That comparison packs a massive punch. Babylon, the most glorious of kingdoms, the flower of Chaldean culture, the pinnacle of human achievement at the time, will end up like Sodom and Gomorrah.
Cities utterly destroyed by God for their wickedness, never rebuilt.
Exactly. It signifies judgment that is decisive, absolute, righteous, and permanent. It means Babylon's fate is sealed, its ruin irreversible, just like those infamous cities.
And verses 20 to 22 really hammer home that idea of permanent, irreversible ruin. This goes beyond just a conquered city.
It does. This is where you see the prophecy extending beyond the immediate historical fall. The land will never rise again, never be inhabited generation after generation, and becomes cursed ground.
Even nomads, desert dwellers will avoid it.
Yes, the text says Arabians, likely Bedouin nomads who could live almost anywhere, won't even pitch their tents there. Shepherds will keep the Hebrew serum. It's often translated that way, or perhaps as wild goats or just howling creatures associated with desolate, haunted places. The symbolism is potent. The space built by human hubris is surrendered back to the wild, the chaotic, maybe even the demonic. It becomes a wasteland.
A truly haunting image of utter desolation.
And it ends with that stark warning. Her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged. The sentence is passed, the execution is inevitable.
So we've walked through the prophecy itself. It's clear this isn't just about ancient history. Let's dig into some of those deeper layers. You mentioned Babylon functions as a type. What does that mean exactly?
It means Babylon serves as a prophetic model, a template. Its characteristics, the pride, the materialism, the idolatry, the opposition to God, and its ultimate fate become the pattern for understanding how God deals with similar systems throughout history and even in the end times.
So the fall of historical Babylon prefigures something bigger.
Definitely. The language used, especially the cosmic signs in verse 10, is so grand, so universal. It strongly suggests a fulfillment beyond just the Medo-Persian conquest. It points toward a final, ultimate judgment.
And we see this pattern repeated elsewhere in the Bible.
Oh, absolutely. There's a clear line of continuity. Jeremiah chapters 50 and 51 offer another massive oracle against Babylon, often using similar language and themes of total destruction.
Right, reinforcing Isaiah's message.
And the cosmic language, the sun, moon, and stars darkening, becomes almost a standard feature, a kind of prophetic shorthand for the day of the Lord. You see it pop up again in Joel chapter 2, Zephaniah chapter 1. It signals divine intervention on a world-altering scale.
And this typology finds its ultimate expression in the New Testament, doesn't it?
It culminates powerfully in the book of Revelation. Chapters 17 and 18 explicitly pick up this imagery and apply it to Babylon the Great.
The final global system of idolatry and rebellion against God.
Exactly. Revelation describes its wealth, its wickedness, its sudden, catastrophic fall, often directly quoting or alluding back to Isaiah 13 and Jeremiah 50-51. So Isaiah's oracle about historical Babylon becomes a pattern for understanding the ultimate collapse of all human systems that defy God. That darkening sky isn't just poetry, it's a theological symbol for the disruption of all human order, political, social, spiritual, when God finally steps in.
That really elevates the significance. Let's break down the analysis further. What are the key theological takeaways about God's sovereignty here?
Well, first and foremost, it's an overwhelming affirmation of God's total control. Yahweh Tsebaot, the Lord of armies, isn't just a title, it's his job description. He orchestrates history, he raises up nations, he brings them down.
Even nations that don't acknowledge him, like the Medes.
Especially them. The fact that he sanctifies or sets apart a pagan nation to execute. His judgment is maybe the most radical statement of sovereignty in the chapter. It shows no power on earth operates outside his plan. His justice isn't just reactive, it's proactive, decreed, and carried out using whatever instruments he chooses.
This hints at those unseen spiritual dynamics at play behind the scenes.
Yes, the text pulls back the curtain a bit. You see God stirring up the Medes. The military campaign is the visible effect of an unseen divine cause. The destruction of Babylon isn't just regime change, it's portrayed as a spiritual defeat for the pride and perhaps the demonic powers associated with that empire.
And the creatures moving into the ruins.
The satyrs, the jackals, they symbolize that spiritual vacuum. When human pride is demolished and divine grace withdraws, the space doesn't remain empty. It reverts to chaos, to the wild, maybe even to the demonic, signifying a spiritual judgment as well as a physical one.
What about the psychological and social impact described? How does that speak to us?
Psychologically, it's a stark portrayal of what happens when a society's ultimate trust is misplaced. The melting hearts, the paralyzing fear, the agony like childbirth that captures the terror of realizing your foundations, wealth, power, empire, are worthless. It's the collapse of a worldview.
And socially.
Socially, the brutality, the killing, the rape, the looting, the families torn apart is a horrifying mirror reflecting the potential consequences of systemic sin. Babylon likely built its glory on exploitation and violence. The judgment mirrors that violence back onto them, showing the utter fragility of civilization when its moral core rots. It's a grim picture of societal disintegration when divine protection is removed.
Okay, if Babylon is this archetype, how do we see its spirit, this modern Babylon operating today? Where should we be looking?
You look wherever you see that same core combination of arrogance, materialism, and self-reliance that defies any accountability beyond itself. It could be in global financial systems obsessed with profit above all else.
Or maybe in technological utopianism, the belief that tech can solve all our problems and make us masters of our own destiny.
Absolutely. Or in political regimes built on ruthless power and oppression. Any system that claims ultimate authority for itself, that trusts in its own strength or wealth, and that marginalizes or opposes divine principles echoes that spirit of Babylon. The haughtiness of the terrible is sadly alive and well.
It's a timeless warning against that kind of hubris.
It really is. And the chapter forces us to ask hard questions about our own societies, our own lifestyles. Where do we place our ultimate trust? In wealth, technology, national power, or in God?
And unfortunately, the descriptions of refugees in chaos also feel very current.
Painfully so. The image of people scattering like hunted animals, fleeing violence, losing everything. It's the reality for millions in our world today due to war and persecution. Isaiah's ancient prophecy captures the enduring human trauma that results when empires clash and societies collapse. It reminds us of the real human cost behind the headlines.
Now, despite all this darkness, this really intense judgment, you said earlier that Isaiah 13 is meant somehow to be an encouragement for believers. How does that work? Especially for those maybe living under difficult or oppressive circumstances.
The primary encouragement comes from the certainty of God's justice and his control. If you're feeling overwhelmed by the seeming power of evil systems, by injustice, by arrogant leaders, this chapter is a powerful reminder. God sees, God knows, and God will act.
So evil doesn't get the last word.
Exactly. Arrogance and oppression have an expiration date. God is sovereign over history. The rise and fall of even the greatest empires happen according to his timeline, his plan. That knowledge provides incredible stability and hope when the world feels chaotic.
Knowing that he's the one directing events, even using unexpected instruments like the Medes, that must build confidence.
It really should. It means no earthly power is truly autonomous or ultimate. Believers aren't dependent on the stability of their government or the strength of their economy for their ultimate security. Our hope is anchored in the Lord of hosts, who is orchestrating all things towards his righteous end.
So it's comforting in terms of God's sovereignty. Does it also give believers direction on how to live now within potentially Babylonian systems?
Yes. It's definitely a call to live differently. If Babylon stands for pride, materialism, and exploitation, then believers are called to be countercultural, to live lives marked by humility, justice, integrity, and reliance on God, not on the world's systems of power and wealth.
Like being ambassadors of a different kingdom, even while living within this one.
Precisely. And that birth pangs metaphor we talked about. While it signifies intense pain and judgment for the wicked system, for the believer, it hints that this necessary judgment is paving the way for something new, something better, God's righteous kingdom. There's hope beyond the collapse.
That's a vital perspective. Okay, let's wrap up this deep dive. We always like to end with a final thought, something for you, the listener, to chew on.
Okay. Think about this. Babylon's defining characteristic was its immense wealth, its glory, its gold, the gold of Ophir even. It fundamentally trusted in its riches for security and power. But God raised up an instrument, the Medes, whose defining characteristic in this context was their indifference to that gold. They couldn't be bought off. Their lack of desire for Babylon's ultimate value sealed its fate.
That's a powerful point.
So the question to ponder is this: what systems in our world today, maybe financial, political, technological, cultural, are utterly reliant on something specific, like wealth or data or popularity or military might, for their sense of power and invincibility? And what kind of unbribable force, maybe a moral awakening, an ecological reality, a social shift, or even just plain indifference from the next generation, could potentially arrive and undermine that system simply by not valuing the thing it worships most?
Where might our modern Babylons be vulnerable to simple indifference? A really challenging thought. Thank you for guiding us through such a complex and, frankly, intense chapter.
It was a privilege. There's so much depth there.